This video will introduce the field of evolutionary genetics. Let's begin with some basic definitions before we dive into this field. When we talk about biological evolution, we are referring to the accumulation of heritable changes for one or more characteristics in a population or species across many generations. In the short term, in populations, that is, this is called microevolution and is simply changes in allele compositions in the gene pool. However, given enough time, we see macroevolution, where we observe large-scale evolutionary changes that create new species. All of these changes are underpinned by mutations and how these mutations affect an organism's phenotype. And in modern day genetics, we often refer to the study of these genetic changes as molecular evolution. By now, you are surely familiar with Charles Darwin, who initially conceived the idea of evolution by natural selection in his seminal work on the origin of species by means of natural selection. Though he came up with this theory before the field of genetics was even founded, his foundational work is ultimately controlled by genetic forces. Evolution as a whole is based on two fundamental principles, which are genetic variation and natural selection. When we think about evolution in a genetic context, we see it operating on two scales. At the species level, which is macroevolution, and at the gene level, which is microevolution and was previously covered. Since we are dealing with macroevolution in this video, an important question is, what is a species? This is a surprisingly challenging question to answer, and no definition of a species is perfect. Here we have four definitions of a species. The first is the biological species concept, which is centered around the ability of two organisms to interbreed. Next, we have the phylogenetic species concept, which often uses genetic differences to group organisms into inclusive groups based on shared traits or gene sequences. Third, we have the morphological species concept, which is based on shared observable characteristics among organisms. This technique predates all others and is still, to this day, likely the most common way we define species. The last definition is the ecological species concept, which defines species based on their environment and the niche within that environment that they occupy. In the next video, we will dive into these definitions a bit more and discuss some of the pitfalls in each species definition.